Good morning. Welcome back to Warriors, Hard Chargers, and Patriots, connecting little dots to big dots. Today I wanted to talk about the concept of being all in. What's that mean to you? What's it mean to me? A variety of people that have had discussions with me about this topic pretty much give me the same answer. But from a leadership perspective, what's your role? Your role is to move your people to a higher emotional level and get them to focus on the mission and make sure that their passions are ignited and that you inspire the very, very best in them. You inspire that by you being all in, and you inspire that by your own example to make sure that they are part of the same tribe that you are. It works through the emotions. It's emotionally compelling conversation. It's emotionally compelling reasons as to why the job is important. And we're going to go into a couple specific examples at the end of this cast. Because I believe that when you drive your people's emotions positively, that's going to bring out their very best. You can go the other way, of course, and I'm going to talk about my Incheon days where we could have gone negative, but we had no real choice, but we chose to go the other way. And what happens where people just did miraculous work over a 2-year period to get that ship back to sea. Because if you go negatively, you're spawning dissonance and you're undermining the emotional foundations that let people shine. They find no hope anymore to go do the job they need to do. I just finished watching for about the 10th time the movie Greyhound with Tom Hanks in it. I spoke to it a little bit in a recent email. If you've not seen Greyhound with Tom Hanks in it, you should see it. It resonated with me for a lot of reasons. One is that here's a guy who's taking command of the ship for the very first time, really doesn't know all of what he's going to get into here, but he's put into some pretty drastic scenarios where he's taken he's escorting this group of ships that are carrying both weapons and personnel across the Atlantic at a time when German U-boats were attacking these ships and sinking them at a great rate. And so he had numerous challenges going across the Atlantic, not a lot of sleep, up all the time, found himself looking at his sailors on the bridge, and the sailors were looking right back at him like, I hope you got this. And in fact, it sort of brought out the positive energy out of Tom Hanks as the captain of the ship. And he refused to back down from letting these young men and women do the job the way they need to do it. And of course, at the end of the movie, without giving the movie away, they're high-fiving each other. But what Tom Hanks is doing is he's finally taken the pack off for probably the first time in 10, 11, 12 days. And I can resonate with that because on every one of my, whether I was in command or one of the followers, I learned early on for all kinds of reasons that I had to be all in on this mission. I thought that the mission was so important. So, we were in Carl Vinson, my horizon was to include flight operations and the safe operation of the navigation of the ship, and all of the nuclear reactors, the 2 nuclear reactors, and the care and feeding of our wonderful men and women that made up our collective tribe. I would put miles on my body daily, just miles literally, and climb, hundreds of stairs, of ladders every day as I transited from one space to another to try to make sure that everybody was all in. And if they weren't, to find out why not, so we could have that conversation, or I could convince their chief petty officer and or division officer or department head to have that conversation. I prefer the latter, quite honestly, because I wanted to make sure they were all in as well. And hearing it from them, they always heard it from me, but hearing from them at the same time proved to be reinforcing. Some of our days extended from early morning. I usually got up around 4:30. It was just a habit of mine to prepare my day for, through a little bit of solitude and get ready to go. And oftentimes we would end up with a sea replenishment that might go to 2 o'clock in the morning after flight ops had ended. So whenever I got a chance to go to bed, and I was watching Tom Hanks as he finally retired and got to get some sleep, and I just remember these days where I would, get undressed, get ready to go to bed, have my moment of solitude, and then pull these sheets up over my body. And I swear, every muscle in my body ached, and every little receptor on my skin seemed to tingle as that sheet was going up over my skin. I was so tired, and there were so many things going on at that time. So the movie captured this strain very well, and you ought to watch it if you really want to get a different view of what this strain was like. I remember Joseph Conrad wrote about Command at Sea, and I'm going to quote him for just a part of the quote, because this is the way I viewed my role as well. I've read this numerous times. I said, well, that's my job. And he said, in each ship, there's one man who in the hour of emergency or peril at sea can turn to no one other. There is one who is ultimately responsible for the safe navigation, engineering performance, accurate gunfire, and morale of the ship. He is the commanding officer. He is the ship. I wore this badge proudly. I recognized that really I wasn't the ship. We were the ship. But my personality and my drive sort of was the lead turn into everything we did. And so if I could convince everybody that we were the ship, then we really got where we needed to go. The total commitment part is so important, right? Because in the examples I'm going to give you is if people weren't all in, giving their entire physical and mental capacity to get the job done, then we were not going to succeed. And we had to do it as one team, one fight. It wasn't going to work if I was all in and the shipmate standing next to me wasn't, or if we were both all in but we had no idea what the other one was doing. We had to make this work in a manner that the team, the tribe, was all in. And when the buy-in was complete, you win those hearts and minds that we keep talking about, the miracles of untethered performance occur. And I saw it so many times, and it was so inspiring, and even to this day, it's so motivating to me. So we're going to talk about a couple examples of where this occurred, and really, you're going to infer some big risk in some of the things we talk about. But the people were brave enough to say, hey, if we're going to go do this, then we indeed are all in. Let me talk. I mentioned the burial at sea in a LinkedIn and Facebook post I did yesterday, and I'm just going to go back to it real quickly. We had a burial at sea of a young. We did a lot of them. We did, I don't know, a couple hundred probably during my tour of sailors and or other people that had been granted the privilege of being buried at sea. Oftentimes, cremated remains. Sometimes not. Sometimes, a casket was delivered to the ship. Very, very reverent ceremony. Normally, you'd see we'd have an honor guard, and we'd have a couple hundred people who would enter a rank because they wanted to. They didn't necessarily know the person, but they wanted to respect the person because they presumed that he or she was one of them at one point. But this particular case was a young naval pilot who had been shot down over Vietnam in I think 1970, and his remains were recovered by the organization that does so in the early or mid 1990s, I think 1994, 1995. And his family, who lived at Whidbey Island, which is sort of we passed Whidbey Island every time we came in and out of Bremerton, which was our home port. Big A6 community, EA6 community, aircraft types that flew off of aircraft carriers. And they requested that we sort of hover around Whidbey Island and have the burial at sea, which we did. And they wanted to come out and fly out to the ship with their extended family, who still all lived in Whidbey Island still, which we granted. We made that happen. But we also brought about 25 naval aviators who had retired. It would be A6 and EA6 aviators because they wanted to be part of this as well. We put the word out to the crew that, and we gave them a little historical background. And one of the things I figured out early on is that these young men and women not only wanted to be part of a tribe where they're all in, but they wanted to understand their predecessors and what they went through so that they could put that sort of into their mental bank of why they had to be as good as they were and why they need to maybe even try to improve. So you can imagine my, not surprise, but my emotional, I hit emotional peak as I'm walking across the hangar bay, and this family and the guest naval aviators were walking across the hangar bay. We have an elevator that's been lowered from the flight deck down to the hangar bay level, so to keep the wind off the ceremony. and I see, I'm guessing 2,000 of our sailors in their dress blues, in ranks. And when the call to attention was made, it just took the air out of my lungs because I went, holy cow, what a great group of young men and women. It even got better as we got out onto the elevator and looked up at the flight deck, and I saw what had to be a couple hundred more because there just wasn't any more room in the hangar bay for these young men and women. And we've officiated this with class and a lot of reverence, and of course at the end, which I didn't mention in the LinkedIn Facebook post, we had the last flyover ever of A6 aircraft. It was a missing man formation to respect this fallen hero. That's all in. That is all in. D-Day. We did, this is a GW story, George Washington story. We were tasked to go over and sort of be the hosting platform, if you will, for the Navy to sit off the coast of Portsmouth, England, in the channel there. Queen Mary was next to us, and it had a bunch of veterans and their spouses from the D-Day days. We came across from Norfolk, Virginia. We had 25 veterans on the ship that basically gave another lesson of why you want to be all in, and I'm going to write about that in a little more detail in one of my next posts. And so we were to go over, and I can't remember what it's called, but basically there's a salute that the Brits have used, and it's a three hip hoorays with the doffing of your cover, and we are going to be part of this. The sailors on the ship, they didn't want to just do this. They wanted to be better than anybody else at it because there were a long line of ships who were about to do this. And we had President Clinton out and Mrs. Clinton, and they were going to ride down the channel on the Queen's yacht and observe all of these ships. So normally you man the rail with single people all the way around the ship. And the young sailors decided that what we would do is double man the side of the ship to which would be to where the yacht would be passing the closest. They wanted to see the president and the queen to see a lot more sailors than quite honestly they were expecting. So we had them all lined up there ready to go, and Murphy's Law hit us and the wind shifted. And as the wind shifted, the ship started to basically go from to starboard, to move to starboard because we were at anchor, so we were pivoting around the anchor. And all of a sudden, instead of the starboard side of the ship being the exposed area from which the president and the queen would see the ship, it was now the port side. We put out a command, and it was like little ants. They were all running to the port side of the ship to get information as quickly as they could. And they first of all, you could hear their three cheers probably miles away because it was done with such enthusiasm. And again, such an appreciation for why they were there, thanks to the 25 D-Day survivors that were with us. And again, I want to write about that because it would take a lot more time than we have on this podcast. Aircraft recoveries. Aircraft recoveries are pretty interesting, but once in a while they get really hairy. And so you have a lot of various people in air traffic control, the pilot, of course, in the airplane, people on the flight deck. And you can tell when you're all in when they can handle the most extreme challenge that might be put before them. We had a F-14 get ready to land. We were sitting off the coast of Iran, and we were heading sort of right directly for their territorial waters. We thought we had plenty of time. We had the wind coming over the deck. We had 14 aircraft that were flying, and all of a sudden we got a call from the F-14 that said that he was having trouble with his leading edge slats, the curved piece that comes down on the leading edge of the wings, which meant that he was going to have to keep them basically stowed, if you will, and he'd have to have a lot more wind coming over the flight deck. We looked at the amount of sea space we had, and then we made the decision that what we were going to go do is recover the other 13 aircraft and then turn the ship as quickly as possible to stay out of Iran's territorial waters and recover the F-14. Now, this just doesn't happen automatically. I got on the 1MC and I basically said, all right, here's what we're going to do. And I'm going to say it like I said it because this is exactly what happened. I said, we're going to have the young lady who's the air traffic controller keep the stack of the holding aircraft in a stack away from the territorial waters. We're going to land the first of these 13 aircraft. We're going to double chalk and chain them, because as soon as that 13th aircraft gets on, we're going to go all back on our engines full. And then when we get below, say, 12 knots or so, then we're going to go full forward, emergency full forward on the starboard engines as we turn to port. So we're twisting the ship as quickly as we can. The guys on the flight deck are doing all the work and double chaining, getting everything done there. And this young air traffic controller, she was an AC-1 at the time. I know she was made chief. She made chief when she was on Carl Vinson with me. She was calm and cool, keeping all of these airplanes, because she had to keep moving the holding stack as well. And her voice was just soothing. I heard it so many times on so many days. And of course, as we got on, now we get onto course, and the reactor guys are putting the engines all the way. We're going full power. We're going full power because now we got the wind on our tail. And we need as much wind over the deck as we can get, and we can generate wind thanks to our nuclear reactors. And we had to get the F-14 placed in a proper position so that he could get on board as quickly as possible. And it all worked. It all worked. I mean, the aircraft landed. We never violated the territorial waters of Iran, and the crew came on board. They came up to thank me for getting them on board safely. And my message to them was, you got to go visit air traffic control. You need to get down to the reactor spaces and thank those propulsion plant operators. And you need to thank the entire flight deck crew for performing miracles so that they could clear that deck as quickly as possible. That is all in. That's all in. There's nothing like it anywhere. Incheon. I mentioned Incheon to you. I wrote about it. It was a ship that, we talked about tribal leadership and the various levels of tribe development. Remember that level 1 was basic life sucks, which is where we were when we got told in short order that we were all moving down permanent change of station to Mississippi for a 2-year overhaul. And it deflated us terribly because we didn't understand why. We quite honestly were never told why. We could guess, and of course perception should never be part of reality, but if they're not going to give you the reality, it just starts, you fill the void, right? So we have 700, close to 800 sailors. And we had a lot of discussions as we were transiting from Norfolk down towards Mississippi about what we had to get done, what our responsibilities were. It's hot. There was no air conditioning on the ship because everything had been torn down. We had what they call stay times, where you could only be on the ship for 30 minutes, and then you had to come up and hydrate and cool off. It was a tough job, and I will tell you, a lot of us sacrificed a lot because we were always there, because the all-in part, winning the hearts and minds, moving them emotionally, that quickly dissipated. The half-life was very short because of the conditions we were in. And it took a lot of effort and energy by people of all pay grades and all levels of leadership to make this work. It was quite miraculous. And again, everyone that on that ship, no matter whether you're a seaman or the captain, we were all in together. And again, I don't want to ever take credit for this because they did the work, but I knew if there was a moment where I showed that I wasn't all in on any of these aforementioned instances, then I was going to lose them. There's going to be this little crack in the dam where maybe my emotions weren't as positive as they needed to be, and perhaps they even hit that area where I was spawning that dissonance that I was talking about. And so that was really a miracle as far as I'm concerned. It worked out exceptionally well. I see a lot of instances in schools where, I just wonder if school boards and some of the other folks involved with schools are all in. I mean, the teachers that I know, I love them, and the administrators I know, I love them. But there are people who control the educational process in this country, and I just wonder if they're all in. I mean, are they winning the hearts and minds? Are they emotionally positive in a construct? I mean, you got to be telling the truth. You can be emotionally positive. I see it in Congress all the time. There's a lot of emotional positivity on one side. There's a lot of emotional positivity on the other. But the two perceptions don't equal one reality. It's just the way it is. There are companies right now in this country, I won't name any of them, that are struggling. They're struggling because what they're building is not necessarily of the quality that they used to build. My guess is that the various stratified, this is the other problem with a lot of industry, in my opinion, you have vertical and horizontal stratifications. The C-suite is basically separated from everybody else. The board is separated from the C-suite, which is separated from everybody else. And it goes on and on and on. And I just wonder, how can you be all in if, in fact, the people who are building whatever it is that they're building or doing the planning and engineering parts of this are questioning whether or not people are all in. And again, the moment you have a fallacy or a fault like that, then you lose it, and in fact, bad things happen. And I saw it in a couple of consulting gigs that I had with a couple of companies where they lost some competitive bids because the leadership team was not all in. They were fractured. Some were all in, but again, if you go back to the leadership or the tribal piece of level 1 through level 4, they might have been at I'm great, but you're not, which is sort of level 3. So you never that's not going to work. You got to be all great, or you're not going to have the ability to be all in and get the types of jobs done that need to be done. This is fundamental. This is how great Navy leaders, and we have so many that are at sea right now that I see posting on various social media, that there's no doubt in my mind they're all in. And then just by reading the comments, I go, you know what? They're all in. Their families are all in. It requires all of that to make it work. And so I was just so impressed with the fact that the leadership at these ships levels, squadron levels, I'll call that the mid-operational level, have figured this out. They're not waiting for they can't deal with a fractured Congress that's not all in. They've got people to take care of, and they got a mission to get done, and they've got to go about that mission because we, the people, are depending on them doing that. They know that. All the people on the ship know that because they're well read into the mission, and they understand their little dots and how they connect to the big dot. And it's a continuing effort because, again, the half-life, especially as it gets hard, the days get long, the time away from home gets long, that you've got to reinforce these things through your actions, through your mannerisms, through your voice, all of those pieces that play an important role. So that's all in, folks. I'm all in still, as you can't tell. I'm high on our services. I'm hopeful for the country. I'm just high on life. Plug in if you want. I'll give you as much motivation, energy as you can use, because it's really where we have to be as a country, right? And we have to fix some of our company issues as well. And you know about them if you read the Wall Street Journal or any periodical. I love you guys. I got another 3,500 meters in today. I'm on my way to break last year's record of 731,500 meters. It just happens, right? I'm not, I keep a little log and I keep track, but it's just, I just swim till I can't swim anymore, just to keep my body fresh, because I want to be around for a long time. I love you. Have a great day. Prayers for our troops, prayers for our troops' families, and prayers for this country, because we need all of them. Thanks so much. Have a great day.